G'day Apples, welcome back to Theme Core. There's this moment in the first Zootopia that I remember watching, even back to the first time I watched it, and having it hit me personally quite hard, and perhaps a little different to how some others may have seen it, I don't know. It comes right after Judy has single-handedly, single-pointedly solved the case of 14 missing mammals exposed to conspiracy that went all the way to the mayor's office and basically saved the entire city of Zootopia from tearing itself apart along predator-prey, i.e., like in our universe, racial lines, and all of this in the context of being a rookie just graduated from an academy that she was only admitted into as my right-wing friends might call a DEI hire, and struggling her way through that just to prove herself to be eligible for the job, and now, fresh in the job, has zero backing to do this case, using a file that only had 1 page in it, and having zero support from her colleagues and superiors, and a deadline of 48 hours, only having the aid of a coerced fox that neither trusts her nor she him. And so she's achieved this amazing feat, but also along the way has not only befriended the fox, that is Nick, but also pulled him out of his shell and given him new hope as well for his life, and restored his faith in the justice system because she's in it, and she's developed herself to the point where she's understood her own bias and all of a sudden had this epiphany. And she's also gained a new partner. He's freshly graduated from the police academy now, sitting in the bullpen with her, waiting for the daily roll call and allocation of duties, right? So this is the scene, this is the context. Does Chief Bogo acknowledge the new recruit, Nick? The boy who's come from nothing to this? Or does he simply revert back to the position that he took at the beginning of the movie, where he uses quote-unquote tough love, wherein no one gets any kind of special treatment here? Well, if you guess the latter, then of course you're correct, because you've seen the film, and the closest thing to humor or good nature that comes from him towards this duo that have just not only saved the city, but also his career, probably, and his personal credibility, is a light-hearted and some would say unjustifiably roughshod joke about putting them on parking ticket duty, haha, because of continuity, before briefly acknowledging the humor in the situation by saying, just kidding, and sending them out on a real case. And this seems like all buddy-buddy and everything, but just remember that he was unjustifiably harsh on this new rookie not that long ago. And I understand that this is the New York aspect of Zootopia, where people bust your balls just to give you a test run at life in the big smoke. But how is it that Nick and Judy's relationship can come so far in the first movie and develop so much into a complex, authentic, and heartwarming rendition of, well, is it platonic love or not? It doesn't really matter in this case. We'll talk about that another time. And continue to complexify that relationship in the second movie, and yet someone else so close and consistently important to Judy and her career as Chief Bogo, because he is, for all intents and purposes, a father figure, and we'll talk about that in a second. How can this remain so static in how he interacts with her, and how can he not seem to engage with her on a personal and caring level for more than around 10 seconds at a time, away from other people? I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I remember seeing him engage with her in any more than a stilted, constipated, and withholding manner during the entire original movie and sequel. But anyway, back to this moment in particular in the bullpen at the end of the movie. I truly believe that this throwaway interaction contains the entire thesis of Chief Bogo's character, and it's a thesis that becomes even more devastatingly relevant in Zootopia 2 after this moment, because Bogo he's not just a boss, he's not just a bureaucrat or an obstacle for our hero to overcome. in her pursuit. He is that, but he is also, in every meaningful way that matters to the narrative, a father figure to her. And like many fathers, especially fathers of a certain generation, his love expresses itself not through warmth and affirmation, but through pressure, through expectations, through the imposition of hardship. He's, the coach who runs you until you vomit and calls it character building. He's the sergeant who screams at you until you cry and calls it discipline and character building. And he's the dad who never says, "I'm proud of you," because he believes with absolute sincerity that if he tells you you're good enough, you'll stop trying to be better, and that's not character building. This isn't an excuse for him and his behavior, it's an explanation. This is what I'm trying to do today. Let's have a crack at understanding this. So today I want to look at the complexity of Judy and Chief Bogo's relationship across the two films. I want to examine how Bogo embodies this archetype of the tough love father figure. There is another name for it we'll go through later, and how that archetype both succeeds and fails, and why potentially, maybe, Zootopia 2's greatest narrative risk isn't a villain or a conspiracy. It's the possibility that Bogo's methods might finally catastrophically break the very officer he's now spent years trying to harden. Let's start with who Chief Bogo is, or rather who we think he is. When we first meet Bogo in Zootopia, he's introduced as an obstacle. Judy has just graduated at the top of her class from the academy. He knows this. He says that he understands this and he doesn't care. She's been assigned to the ZPD's most prestigious precinct, epicenter of town. She's in the big smoke now, kid. And she's full of optimism and idealism and that bunny energy that makes you either root for her or want to tell her to calm down. And Bogo, within 30 seconds of meeting her, assigns her to parking meter duty. Now, on first viewing, we interpret this as prejudice. And it is, partly. Bogo looks at this 3-foot-tall bunny from a carrot farm in Bunny Burrow, and he doesn't see a cop, he sees a liability. You can see it from his point, right? He sees someone who's going to get herself killed, or get someone else killed, or both, and then he's going to have to fill the paperwork out about it. And I'm a teacher. We know how much paperwork hurts us deep inside. He's not a villain. He's not even necessarily a bigot in the active, malicious sense. Anyway, he's just someone who's spent 30 years in law enforcement, being probably quite excellent in his job, learning exactly what doesn't work. And Judy Hopps looks to him like everything that doesn't work. And here's the thing about Bogo that I think a lot of analyses miss at this point. He doesn't assign Judy to parking duty because he wants her to fail. He assigns her to parking duty because he wants her to survive. Think about it from his perspective a little more. The ZPD, they've never had a bunny officer. There's no institutional knowledge about how to train one, how to equip one, how to deploy one. This academy curriculum that she's just gone through was designed for mammals of average size and strength upward, which in Zootopia means, something like a sheep or a pig or a goat. It reminds me a little bit of the Jim Crow laws, in particular, like the aspect of that wherein eventually when Black Americans were allowed to start voting, they had to undergo, in many places, I'm not sure if it was everywhere or not, I'd have no idea about American politics really, they had to pass a literacy test, which I actually did last week with one of my classes, and it was not easy. It was not designed for them. In fact, it was designed to stop them from voting. Get one answer wrong, and you're out. And you have to pay to take this exam, by the way. And you have 10 minutes to do it, and it's about 10 minutes of very hard work for someone who not only has a academically trained mind, but is also very reminiscent of aptitude tests to get in the army and things like that. There's constant pressure on it as well. And if you talk to it's designed to get them to fail. This beginning montage of her at the academy, of Judy at the academy, tries to let young audiences know that she's overcoming obstacles literally and metaphorically, but to me, it's chilling. they've given her this opportunity and they expect her to fail. And she passes anyway. She passes at the top of the academy, the top of her class. She's smaller, she's lighter, she's physically less powerful than every other officer in the building by the time she arrives at the precinct, and Bogo knows this because he's seen it happen before, possibly with other animals, but this is the first time that one of them has made it this far, potentially. And we know that she's definitely the first bunny, right? And he's worried that the first time she gets into a real confrontation, the first time some wildebeest or rhino or bear decides he doesn't want to go to jail, she's going to get absolutely, demolished, So the buck stops with him, and so he puts her somewhere safe, somewhere she can't get hurt, somewhere she can, in his mind, have a long, uneventful, injury-free career. Obviously, he doesn't reckon with her personality and her motivation, and that's his first mistake of many. This is, of course, completely wrong, right? It's wrong because it denies Judy the opportunity to prove herself. It's wrong because it assumes that past performance is the only predictor of future success. It's wrong because it's fundamentally conservative. In the literal sense, it seeks to preserve the existing system rather than to improve it. It seeks to keep her in her unpotentiated, unfulfilled, yet still alive shape. So it's not malicious. It's not even particularly cruel from a certain point of view, as my mental father figure once said. It's the logic of a man, or buffalo, who has spent his entire adult life in a dangerous, high-stakes profession and has learned through trial and error that the best way to keep people alive is to keep them away from things that can kill them, right? This is obviously the first layer of Bogo's fatherhood. He's the dad who won't let you borrow the car because he knows statistically that 16-year-olds crash cars. I mean, look at the insurance prices in Australia, for example, for 18 to 25-year-old drivers, and they are through the roof because people know. The stats don't lie. Younger drivers are inexperienced and have a particular personality about them when they get on the road in a certain frame of mind. And I've lost friends as teenagers back in the day, and I can see why. Shall I just say that he's worried about her. He's not trying to punish you, this father figure. He doesn't understand that what you need isn't protection. It's the opportunity to learn how to drive without him in the passenger seat, grabbing the dashboard and yelling at stop signs. Oh, well, I'm just basing that on my own learner-driver experiences. Really looking forward to doing that with my kids, hopefully in the coming years. But now let's talk about the second layer, because this is where it gets complicated. The second layer of his parenthood for Judy. I mean, first reaction, isolate and protect. But after Judy successfully, albeit accidentally, solves the case of the 14 missing otters and exposes Mayor Lionheart's secret prison, Bogo has a choice, right? He could double down. He could find some bureaucratic pretext to explain why he was wrong and Judy was right, which is what most people in positions of authority do when confronted with their own failures. He doesn't do that. Instead, he actually does something much harder. He admits he was wrong. I mean, kind of. He apologizes indirectly, kind of very gruffly, in his own deeply Bogo way, when after the press conference and confronting Bellwether with her resignation, he says, that she shouldn't give herself so much credit because the world has always been broken and that's why we need good cops like you. And that's about as good as it gets. But as well as that, also revealing his attitude towards the world and explaining why he treated her like he did. He's protecting her in a broken world. And he does something even harder after that. He changes. He's not enthusiastic about it. He's not warm. He's still Bogo, but he's doing it. He's integrating the department, not because someone ordered him to, but because his best officer, an officer he tried to sideline, showed him a better way. And this is the second layer of Bogo's fatherhood. He's not just a protector. He's also, when, forced to confront his own limitations, a learner. He's capable of growth, even if that growth is slow and reluctant to the last, and accompanied by probably significant grumbling at home to the mirror. It happens. Now, I just want to pause here and talk about the archetype Bogo represents, if that's okay, because it's one that we don't often analyze in pop culture, like analysis, criticism, whatever, of narratives. But it's important. And to me, it's highly relatable, and this is what I'm talking about, the personal connection that I have to this particular dynamic, right? In Western storytelling, we have these two dominant models of the father figure. They're not the only two by any means, but there's these two that we see all the time. There's the nurturing father, Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird and Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's the dad who sits you down and explains the world with patience and wisdom, and, they'll start a tea shop with you or whatever. And then there's the absent father, Darth Vader from, Star Wars, and King Triton from The Little Mermaid. They're just not there, or they're in the physical presence of their children, but not mentally there. Think any kind of stereotypical 1950s dad, and whose absence in general or failure defines the hero's journey. Bogo's neither of these, by the way. He's a third category, and one that we don't really talk about enough, and he's what we call the institutional father. Now, the institutional father doesn't raise you, right? What he does is initiate you into a system. He understands the power dynamic between a father and their child, and he uses it, sometimes, in a seemingly caring way that has a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling at the end of the interaction, but also sometimes against you. And this institutional father trope is alongside, it's akin to what is also known as the arch nemesis father. We'll talk about that another day, right? That's more of a Linksley type thing. He teaches you, this institutional father, the rules, the protocols, the chain of command, and that starts at home and extends into outer life, right? He evaluates you, he disciplines you, and if you prove worthy, he willingly promotes you. He believes in meritocracy. His love isn't expressed through affection, but through recognition, right? So when he gives you a difficult assignment, it's not because he hates you, it's because he believes you can handle it. And when he criticizes you, it's not because he wants to hurt you, it's because he truly believes you can be better, right? And the institutional father isn't unique to a law enforcement figure like Chief Bogo. He exists in every hierarchical organization. You could see the family as one of those in itself, but in a professional sense, we're talking about like the military, academia, corporate management, professional sports. He's the sergeant major who calls you a maggot in basic training, and then years later pins a medal on your chest. And he's the professor who gives you a C- on your first paper, and then 4 years later writes you a letter of recommendation for graduate school and talks about how far you've come. And he's the editor who covers your draft in red ink during your first journalism job, and then when you finally get it right, publishes your story on the front page, right? It's very Devil Wears Prada, right? And here's the thing about the institutional father that Bogo embodies, well, perfectly. His methods are brutal on Judy. They're often unfair. They can cause real, lasting psychological damage. And I would argue that hits home with her quite hard. But they're not arbitrary. There's a logic to them, a strategy, a belief that hardship isn't merely an obstacle to success, but actually a prerequisite for it, Pressure makes diamonds, etc. Have a teaspoon of cement and harden up. Bogo doesn't assign Judy to the parking duty because he's lazy or because he enjoys crushing dreams, as well as obviously, trying to protect her, as, we talked about before. He believes with genuine conviction that if she cannot excel at the most mundane, thankless job in the department, she does not deserve and is not ready for, the more challenging assignments. It is, in its own twisted way, like this form of respect. He's not coddling her. He's not lowering the bar because she's small and cutesy. He's holding her to the same standard as every other officer, and that standard is prove it. And that brings us to Zootopia 2, right? And this is where Bogo's character becomes genuinely heartbreaking. Because here's the problem with the institutional father. His methods work, right? Until they don't. His toughness builds resilience, until it builds walls. His refusal to praise until the praise, when it finally comes, is too little and too late. And we get this moment when he tries in his own way to tell her that she needs to up her game because she's going to ruin it for everyone coming from a small prey background into the police force that comes after her. He needs her to pave the way for them. That's his way of showing, genuine affection. And it comes out as a warning to everyone else, but I felt the heartache that he feels for Judy in that moment. But let's rewind a bit, because at the beginning of Zootopia 2, we see Bogo at his most Bogo, don't we? We see that he's assigned Judy and Nick to observe and not participate in this undercover operation. He's criticizing them for pursuing leads that he considers irrelevant, and he's threatening to split up their partnership now. And from his perspective, he's doing exactly what he did in that first film, setting high expectations, refusing to lower standards, demanding that his officers prove themselves. And this is the problem that we get often with sequels, by the way, where you've got certain characters that just never change. And what I've noticed in previous comments from my first video in particular about Judy and Nick's relationship is that people, we genuinely love their dynamic and how much they progress over the two films. And this is what has sparked this, in my eyes, complete mania of will they, won't they romantic relationship. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, and we're talking about Bogo, and we're talking about how static he, is throughout the two movies, basically. But, something has changed, and it's not with him. In the first film, Judy herself was an unknown quantity, and she had to prove that she belonged. And by the second film, she's proven it. She solved the biggest case in ZPD, at least recent history. She saved the city, for God's sake. She's a public figure. She's a symbol of progress. She's the literal poster child, poster bunny, whatever, for the department's modernization. And yet Bogo is still treating her like a rookie, still assigning her to partner therapy, still threatening to split up her team, and still, in every meaningful way, refusing to acknowledge that she's already passed every test he's ever given her, right? And this is the tragedy of the institutional father. He doesn't know when to stop. He doesn't know how to transition from disciplinarian to mentor, from evaluator to advocate and ally. He's spent his entire career in a system that rewards toughness and punishes softness. And he's internalized that logic so completely that he can't conceive of an alternative. To praise Judy openly would be, in his mind, to lower the bar. And to acknowledge her accomplishments would be to suggest that she has nothing left to prove. And a police officer who has nothing left to prove is a police officer who gets complacent, and a police officer who gets complacent is a police officer who gets killed. I'm going to stop saying police officer now. So anyway, he keeps pushing, and he keeps demanding, keeps withholding the one thing Judy actually needs from him, which is not another challenge, but an acknowledgement. You did it, kid. You're one of us. I'm proud of you. And you could always argue that he does that through including her in the culture of the ZPD. But, and here's the devastating irony, Bogo thinks he's protecting Judy by keeping her hungry, by refusing to let her rest on her laurels. But what he's actually doing is creating the conditions for her burnout. He talks about the fact that she's solved this case, but it's always followed, in the case of the institutional father, with a but and a negative. He's teaching her that no achievement is ever enough, right? that no success is ever final, that the bar will always be raised just beyond her reach. And he's turning her into the kind of officer who can't stop working, who can't delegate, who can't trust her partner to handle things without her, because she's never been given permission to believe that she's already good enough. Her parents at home tell her that all the time. They're the other end of the scale, right? They don't want her to try at all. They want her to sit and enjoy the life that they have created for her. But for her, it's not enough. She goes away and adopts a new father figure. And he tells her constantly that what she's going for is always going to be out of her reach, right? And we see this in the initial scenes where Judy and Nick's pursuit of this unfolding mystery before them leads to a citywide disaster, the desolation of this statue in what is a hilarious way. But Bogo's response isn't, what did you learn, or how can we do better next time, or what can we do with the information that you have found? It's, you're out of the field, go to partner therapy, and fail at this and I split you up. Now, from Bogo's perspective, this is standard operating procedure. Officers who make mistakes get reassigned, and officers who can't work together get separated. And this is how the institution maintains, like a discipline and accountability. But from Judy's perspective, and from ours as the audience, this kind of feels like a betrayal, right? There's no kind of about it, actually. It feels like betrayal. She didn't make a mistake out of carelessness or incompetence this time. She made a mistake, an honest mistake, because she was pursuing a legitimate lead that Bogo dismissed without investigation. She was right about the snake, wasn't she? She was right about the conspiracy, just like she was with the Night Howlers. She was right about the threat to the city. She's an upstart, but she was right, and Bogo punished her for being right. And this is the moment where the institutional father's logic breaks down. She did it her way, not his way, not the system's way. And Bogo's system is designed to prevent errors by punishing them. Negative reinforcement. But it has no mechanism for rewarding correct judgments that violate protocol. It has no way of saying, you disobeyed a direct order, but you were right and I should have trusted you. All it can do is enforce compliance regardless of outcome. I'm a teacher, and in the classroom, it's just as challenging to push the abilities of a gifted and talented student in your class as it is to, pull up your lower students with lots of gaps in their learning, right? And this is that, right? It's very tempting to focus on the people who aren't doing enough to maintain the standard. It's hard to deal with people who are really pushing the boundary at the other end of things and trying to excel all the time. We can't always be Miss Honey from Matilda, right? Sometimes we have the Trunchbull logic built into us because of time constraints, and our job's hard and it's hot if you're in Australia, or it's cold if you're anywhere else. And this is why Judy's arc in Zootopia 2 is so painful to watch. She spent the entire last movie trying to earn Bogo's approval. She's saved the city, she exposed conspiracies, mentored new officers, and consistently demonstrated that she's not just competent, but exceptional. And still, Bogo treats her like a problem to be managed rather than an asset to be developed. He is the bell curve incarnate, right? So here's my question, and I think it's, the question I think Zootopia 2 is asking but never quite answers. Is Bogo's method actually working? Or has he just been lucky up to this point? Because let's look at the evidence. Judy is this extraordinary officer, right? She's brave, she's intelligent, she's persistent, she's deeply committed to justice. She's also, by the end of the second film, exhausted, frustrated, and increasingly cynical about the institution she's spent her entire career trying to join and reform in her own way, on her own terms. And how much of her success is attributable to Bogo's toughness, and how much of it occurred despite this toughness? I don't think there's a clean answer, And that's what makes this relationship so compelling to me. Bogo's methods did contribute to Judy's development. He didn't let her coast. He forced her to prove herself again and again, and that pressure forged her into the officer she became. But, his methods also caused real harm. They undermined her confidence, they made her doubt her own instincts, they taught her that the institution she serves will never fully trust her, no matter how many times she saves it. And this is the paradox of the institutional father. He's both necessary and insufficient at the same time. He provides the structure, and he provides the discipline, the high standards that enable excellence. He gives her the framework, but he can't provide the affirmation, the trust, the emotional safety that sustain excellence over a whole career. He can make you a great officer, right? But he can't make you a happy officer. And I think in his own way, Bogo knows this. I think that's why at the very end of Zootopia 2, when Judy and Nick have once again saved the city, despite his lack of trust throughout the process and exposed the Linksley conspiracy, Bogo doesn't say anything, There's no apology, no grand speech, no kind of I was wrong and you were right. And I'm sure that there was a discussion in the writing room about how many long conversations, apologetic conversations you could have at the end of a film. You don't want it to end up like The Return of the King or something like that with 5 endings. But you've just got at the end these 2 mammals who have spent by now, at least months in a difficult, demanding, often adversarial, oppositional kind of relationship, and who have somehow, despite everything, developed something that looks almost like mutual respect. It's not the relationship Judy wanted. It's not the relationship she deserved. But, at the end of the day, it's the relationship she got, and she has to decide whether that's enough. Now, this is where I want to get personal for a moment, because I think this is where the metaphor becomes real. You see, I grew up with a father who was in many ways kind of like Chief Bogo. He wasn't cruel, he wasn't absent, he wasn't a buffalo. He was just hard to be around, right? He believed that praise made you soft, and that criticism, to a point, made you strong. Nothing over the top. He believed that the best gift he could give me was this kind of relentless, uncompromising demand that I be better. And this wasn't always explicit, but it was in the absence of praise, right? And I resented him for it. For years I resented him. I thought he didn't love me. I didn't think he knew how to love me, or loved some idealized version of me that I could never really become. Because I'd reached the goal, and then he'd changed the goal, right? And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, right? Sitting in his kitchen, watching him struggle to express something that he'd clearly been trying to say for like an hour, but who knows, maybe he'd been trying to say it for nearly 30 years, that I finally got it, right? He hadn't been trying to break me. He was trying to prepare me for a world that he believed, correctly as it turned out, wouldn't care about my feelings, right? It wouldn't lower its standards because I was tired or scared or uncertain, and it wouldn't care about my feelings once I stopped showing excellence, in sport in particular, but also sometimes academically, when I was lucky. And he was trying to give me armor. And the only way he knew how to do that was to hit me with the hammer until I stopped bending. Right? And that's not an excuse, just like with Bogo. It's not a justification. But it is something that I keep with me. It's this explanation that now I understand. And understanding that changed how I saw him. It didn't erase any of the bad times. It didn't repair the relationship. But it didn't make it any worse. And that was a good start. And it also made the relationship between him and I legible, if that makes sense. It transformed this kind of source of pain into a source of complexity, and feelings that I'm still dealing with to this day, right? Aren't we all? And I think that's what Zootopia is doing with Chief Bogo. It's not excusing him. It's not even necessarily redeeming him. It's just making him legible, right? It's showing us that the gruff, kind of demanding, emotionally constricted, I think I used the word before, constipated authority figure isn't a villain. He's a man. An anthropomorphized buffalo man who learned through years of experience in a brutal system, through adaptation, that the only way to survive is to become at least a little bit brutal yourself, right? And the question both films leave us with, the question I'm still trying to answer in my own life as well, is whether that's a tragedy we can forgive or just a tragedy that we have to learn to live with. I hope you enjoyed this deeper look at Zootopia's most misunderstood character. I've had to step away and come back from that one. That was rough on the old head and the heart. But anyway, Chief Bogo isn't the hero of these films. We know that. He's not even really a good father figure. But he's a realistic one, and in a genre that often reduces authority figures to either wise mentors, the Uncle Irohs, or corrupt villains like the Darth Vaders. That realism, it matters to me. By the way, subscribe. I forgot to say that at some point. Let me know in the comments how you interpret Bogo's arc. Do you reckon he earns Judy's respect by the end of the second film, or is his refusal to change a failure the movie doesn't kind of adequately address? Does he change? Have I missed this completely? Don't feel like you need to sugarcoat it for me. I just want to hear your ideas. I'll see you next time. Hooroo.